Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the May 14th, 2018 edition of The Breast There Is, The Breast There Was, and The Breast There Ever Will Be Wrestling Podcast. As always, I am your host, Mikey B, WWE. And this week we'll be covering the results of the 2018 pay-per-view Backlash, as well as the latest developments and major storyline progressions on Monday Night Raw and Smackdown Live. Now, first of all, dealing with Backlash, the event from not just yesterday, but this previous Sunday. This is the first pay-per-view of the year following the Greatest Royal Rumble, which follows the regular WWE pay-per-view calendar as it takes place on the traditional Sunday night. I've already voiced my opinion enough about the Greatest Royal Rumble and how I felt that event was certainly not up to the. It wasn't a proper WWE event, and especially because it didn't include any of the WWE women's roster on the show. So I do have to count it, however, because it did have title matches and whatnot. But Backlash is really, in my mind, sort of marks the beginning of the resuming the regular pay-per-view schedule for the season. So. At the event, there were 8 matches. Not a lot of surprises, as per my predictions on my show. There were 2 matches of the 8, which I did guess incorrectly. The first one was between Daniel Bryan and Big Cass. And I decided, even though Daniel Bryan certainly, he's the better wrestler and overall competitor, I ultimately thought, since both of these wrestlers recently returned, and Big Cass, of course, has been billed as a heel now, it made sense in my mind that Big Cass, they would give him more heat and more, so the crowd would dislike him more by having him win in potentially a dirty way over Daniel Bryan. What the result was, and I'll tell you why after I discuss the results, why I believe the WWE got it wrong. They did have Daniel Bryan be victorious in this match, and Big Cass also submitted to Daniel Bryan's yes lock. Why I believe this was not the ideal outcome is because, again, if you're having a guy recently returned who clearly the company, I think, wants to give a bit of a push to, give them, see what they can do and make them a more interesting figure. They have them, if they're a heel character, they have them get a string of victories, even if they're dirty victories or they have interference from someone else. This way, at least, it makes that person look tough and strong, and the person who loses on account of some cheating, Daniel Bryan would be in this case, doesn't make them look weak because they didn't lose fairly anyways. Instead, the WWE decided to, like I said, make Daniel Bryan defeat Big Cass by submission, which totally makes Big Cass look weak, which is something I don't quite understand. My suggestion and my proposal would have kept both guys looking good. What they did do, however, sort of almost to appease my proposed outcome for the match, was following the match, they had Big Cass then blindside Daniel Bryan and continue to attack him after losing. So in one way, you could argue that this same result was kind of achieved. However, Big Cass, though, does have a loss in his first singles match back, has a loss, and by submission, no less, to Daniel Bryan. So this definitely hurt Big Cass's reputation, I would say. If you're trying to make him look good and you put him against one of the best wrestlers of all time in his first singles match upon return, you want to make him win, even if it's in a dirty way. So I don't agree with the WWE's creative decision on the outcome of that match. And the only other one I got incorrect on the whole pay-per-view was between AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura. And easy reason I didn't get this one right is because, once again, for the second event in a row, also including the Greatest Royal Rumble event, this match ended in a no contest. Both men kicked each other right between the legs, and they were both down for the count and could not get up for a count of 10. So the referee declared it a no contest. I was voicing in previous podcasts that no contests or disqualifications or countouts are the most difficult to predict accurately because virtually any time they could decide to make an outcome of this result, and there's no real telling in advance how you can predict that. It's really just up to them how they want to decide when to implement a no contest result on one of their matches. And this is, again, like I said, the second event in a row where the two of these guys ended in a no contest. So this does hurt my overall pay-per-view results prediction count. With these first two events of the year, my record stands at what I would say is a very good percentage of 13 correct out of 18, which gives me 72% correct predictions count. Meanwhile, if we were to, but I also discussed that I was planning to keep a separate poll initially, not including matches which ended in a no contest or in a disqualification or count out, to see how many I actually get right or wrong with a proper result, either a pinfall or submission. So if we were to count that, my overall record would be 13 out of 16, which is certainly better than 13 out of 18. And both of those two were affected by the AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura matchups. However, I ultimately decided that because I may exercise the right to choose a match ending by disqualification at some point, I wanted to keep that open for myself. But it is certainly interesting to note, I want to keep track for myself regardless how many of these matches on the pay-per-views end in such a manner, because just out of curiosity's sake, how many I actually get right when they display a proper outcome. So that's more or less it. There wasn't a great deal of excitement going on at the Backlash event. And now the WWE's attention is turned, of course, to its next pay-per-view, which is the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. So before I get into that, like I said, my prediction rate after the first two of the year is 13 out of 18. So I'm certainly happy with this, and I want to keep this rate as high as it is right now, and if anything, improve upon that. So so moving over to Monday Night Raw and Smackdown Live the following two nights after Backlash. Like I said, the WWE Universe has now turned its attention to the Money in the Bank pay-per-views. And this matchup, of course, the Money in the Bank matchup, originated at WrestleMania and has since become now an annual event they have separately in a pay-per-view, and they don't hold this at WrestleMania anymore. So I think I can see why they did that. I thought that was a nice thing to have at WrestleMania, but because it was such a popular match and has remained so, I can see why the WWE capitalized on this by creating its own event surrounding this. And furthermore, now the fact that we have a women's Money in the Bank ladder match as well, which is great, it would be a little bit convoluted at WrestleMania to do both of those. So presently, it makes sense that they have their own event. But, of course, the women's Money in the Bank ladder match just debuted last year at the event. So this is something for years where I felt they could have kept it at WrestleMania, but now that they have a separate men's and women's matchup, it makes sense that there's a separate pay-per-view accordingly. So, starting with Monday Night Raw on May the 7th, again, the company's moving full throttle into this next pay-per-view now. And by doing so, they started with some Money in the Bank qualification matchups to determine people that will actually earn the right to be in these matchups. On the men's side, this year, which I believe is the most they've ever had, they're having 8 participants, and the women will have 6. And these participants are coming from both Raw and SmackDown, which is great. Last year, it was, I believe, on SmackDown only, as they were doing separate branded pay-per-views at that point. Thankfully, this year now they've decided to co-brand, by the sounds of it, every pay-per-view, which will certainly be great. We'll have a lot more better caliber matches, and it'll include more of the top superstars every single month. So, which is definitely a great thing, because when you consolidate this roster into one pay-per-view card each month, you're going to get great superstars from top to bottom on the entire pay-per-view instead of a few great matches and a few matches which are better reserved for television or house shows. So this is a great thing. And the first matchup they included on Monday Night Raw for the Money in the Bank qualifying was between Braun Strowman and Kevin Owens. And it's funny because they had already advertised prior to the announcement of this first matchup that later on in the show there would be an additional triple threat women's Money in the Bank qualification match and an additional men's triple threat Money in the Bank qualification match. So I thought it was kind of interesting that they started off by just doing a one-on-one matchup. And certainly it proved to be unfair to Kevin Owens, as Braun Strowman was victorious in this match and was the first member to secure his spot in the Money in the Bank ladder match coming up at the next pay-per-view. As I just mentioned, there was a women's triple threat qualification match also, and this match included participants Sasha Banks, Ruby Riott, and Ember Moon. And in this match, Ember Moon, who had just debuted following WrestleMania, she was victorious in this match and notched her spot in the women's Money in the Bank qualification, or women's Money in the Bank match at the pay-per-view coming up as well. We also on Monday Night Raw observed there was an interview between Renee Young and Bobby Lashley. So this is notable because it appears the company, I think, is going to really give Bobby Lashley now a significant push upon his return after being away for about a decade. So, it'll be interesting to see how they implement or include him in the title pictures and which championships he will be vying for over the course of this next year and beyond. So he was always certainly a good talent in-ring wise, very strong. His character wasn't always incredibly interesting, so we'll see what they do with how they develop his character more, and again, how they direct him and push him and navigate his career, and see if they're going to give him some big title opportunities. But I suspect they certainly will. They normally wouldn't have a separate recorded interview that they pretty much show us in its entirety on Monday Night Raw, unless they're really trying to give a push to somebody for the near future. So that's certainly worth noting that Bobby Lashley is, you can, I think, expect that he's going to get a push starting very soon into some title shots. And what else? There was also an Intercontinental title match on Monday Night Raw between champions Seth Rollins and Mojo Rawley. Seth Rollins was victorious in this matchup over Mojo. And also in the main event was the other Money in the Bank qualification matchup, which was the men's triple threat match of the night, featuring Finn Balor, Roman Reigns, and Sami Zayn. And this one was notable for its outcome. Jinder Mahal decided to interfere in this match and attacked specifically Roman Reigns, which I guess permitted Finn Balor to secure the victory over Sami Zayn in this one, while Roman Reigns was knocked out of the match out on the floor. So Finn Balor has qualified also, along with Braun Strowman, for the Money in the Bank match there next month. So it now appears that Jinder Mahal and Roman Reigns may begin some sort of a feud. It's difficult to say how long this one will last for, but it appears that this is a new feud that will at least linger for a little while, the next few weeks or so. Moving over to Smackdown Live the following night on the 8th of May. Continuing again, since they're also promoting the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, since its superstars will also be involved, we had some more qualification matchups on Tuesday night. The first of which was between United States champion Jeff Hardy and The Miz. And this one, I got to say, was a great matchup with an outstanding finish to the match. What appeared to be Jeff Hardy was nearing victory after landing the Swanton Bomb and went for the pinfall. The Miz, after a 2 count, reversed the pinfall and wound up pinning Jeff Hardy himself after it appeared that he was pretty much done for. So The Miz wound up qualifying for the Money in the Bank match, which was a very shocking, surprising end, and I think everybody kind of appreciated just these two great in-ring workers putting on a good match and telling a good story in that particular match. So The Miz has now joined Braun Strowman and Finn Balor as another member in the Money in the Bank matchup. Also on SmackDown Live, we saw another promo for the faction called the heel stable called Sanity, which they're saying they're going to be appearing on SmackDown Live at some point. And this Sanity group has 3 members in it. I'll certainly learn a lot more and report about them when they do actually appear. But these guys were coming up from NXT, so we saw another promo for them. So I would imagine in the coming weeks, we will get a chance to see these guys appear on the show in the flesh. Besides this opening Hardy-Miz matchup for the Money in the Bank qualifier, we also had another women's matchup, which was a Money in the Bank qualification match too, featuring Charlotte Flair and one member of the Iconics, Peyton Royce, who was accompanied to the ring by her other Iconics member, Billie Kay. Charlotte Flair wound up being victorious in this match, securing her spot along with Ember Moon in the women's Money in the Bank match. Besides this, the main event of SmackDown Live was another men's Money in the Bank qualification match. Boy, I feel like I've said that about 20 times in the last 10 minutes. Daniel Bryan was taking on Rusev, who was accompanied by his Rusev Day tag teammate Aiden English. A very surprising outcome to this one, as Rusev defeated Daniel Bryan cleanly without any interference from Aiden English. It's interesting to note that this outcome occurred now because Rusev, for many months now, has been cheered on by the crowd wherever he's gone. People clearly want to see Rusev get some title opportunities and some chances. And for him to defeat Daniel Bryan clean was very surprising, especially after Daniel Bryan had recently defeated Big Cass at the Backlash event 2 days before, and Daniel Bryan has been on a bit of a hot streak since his return, and justifiably so. So Rusev has now secured his spot in this match. It remains to be seen if people who have lost in these other matches, like Daniel Bryan, Roman Reigns, Sami Zayn, if they will then in the following weeks can get another opportunity to qualify for the Money in the Bank matchup. I suspect they will, because this matchup, or this pay-per-view, won't be happening for another 4 weeks or so, and they have a lot of television storyline development to undergo and more spots to fill, and I would imagine they're going to certainly save to the end probably some matchups where people who have already lost their opportunity will get a secondary chance to qualify. And in this case, likely guys like Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns will then qualify on those later opportunities. So that's pretty much it. Money in the Bank was the big talk after Backlash this week. And I'm sure continuing tonight and tomorrow night, there will be more Money in the Bank qualifier matches. So we'll see how this pay-per-view takes shape soon enough. And that pretty much covers it. So thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel below if you liked what you heard. And feel free to leave any questions or comments below. And that's it. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.